Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Oolong Passion, a uniquely fruity tea with tropical blends of oolong, passion fruit, blood orange, lemongrass, and coconut. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary. Make sure to click the link below and go check them out. Guarantee you're going to like it. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hello, Ryan here.
Hello.
What's going on?
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Why don't we go ahead and get into it? Tell us a little bit about, where you're from, what you do. Give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
So I live out in Malala, which is south of Portland, about 45 minutes.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I play bass for whoever needs bass, basically.
Fun. Hey, I am also a bass player as well, so I think we're gonna get along well for this one.
I think so.
What got you into music initially? Was bass your first instrument?
Actually, no. A trumpet was my first instrument.
Okay.
I started playing music in 6th grade band, and that's what I started on was trumpet.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did you do band for?
Throughout high school. We had the same band director in middle school and high school. I went to a pretty small school.
Oh, gotcha.
The music program was run by the same people.
Okay. But you didn't do anything with it when you got out of high school?
I did some community college jazz and wind ensemble, but nothing too serious. But
okay.
Yeah.
And then when did you pick up the bass?
Around 8th grade. Yeah, probably around the age 12 or 13.
Okay, so there was a small point in time where you were doing both at the same time.
Yes, yep.
And then did bass take off through joining bands with people? Did you just kind of fall for it more? How did that become the main instrument?
Well, since I went to a relatively small school, there wasn't much in the way of competition,
Oh, true, yeah.
As far as other people that wanted to play bass. I did have some friends that wanted to play just for fun. But when I started playing in the ensembles, I eventually got asked to do just about everything that needed bass.
Yeah.
Whether it be the drama department, the choir, the pep band, jazz band, whatever it is, I was usually the call for it.
Okay, so you were doing stuff in your school space even, not just joining bands.
On top of that, a little bit on the outside.
Not just joining bands.
Right. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's fun stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It got me a lot of hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, you knocked out that 10,000 hours real quick.
Hopefully.
There's an episode where we actually did the math on 10,000 hours, by the way, if you ever want to go check it out. I don't remember it now.
Oh, yeah.
But getting back to you, these next couple questions, these are foundation ones we ask everybody. And this first one, we ask it early, we ask it often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Specifically vinyl album or CDs? Or
whatever you bought as your first purchase of music.
I'd say probably the I'm With You album by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was kind of a weird time for them because that was when Frusciante left, but it was after a big hiatus, they come out with this CD, and I was like, I have to go buy that.
Yeah.
Because I had an iPod, and I didn't really download music on it or anything, but so I was like, I got to go buy this because Chili Peppers are my favorite band, so I had to hear it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And then what was the first live show you ever went to that you also that was one you wanted to go to, you saw it was happening, you got the tickets and you went?
Probably the Chili Peppers again.
Okay, hell yeah.
It was around the same time that I got that album. I never thought that they'd be coming back. I never thought that they'd tour, put out any more music, and then all of a sudden they announced that they have all this stuff coming out and they're going to do a tour. And so I went to my dad and can we go to this? And we ended up going together, and that was one of the first concerts I ever went with just my dad, and that was an awesome time.
Hell yeah.
The Rose Garden. It was the Rose Garden then, not the Moda Center.
So it was definitely back in the day.
It wasn't too. It was just like right when it had transitioned from Rose Garden to Moda Center, I think.
Hell yeah.
One of the last years, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, still, I mean, I think that's pretty special that like you were able to kind of carry the experience with them through that for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like not just your first purchase of music, which is, important in every musician's life, but also like the first like one that you got to choose to go to.
Yeah, and I think honestly it even dates back further that it might have been some of the first music I ever heard.
Yeah. It's funny because that's a newer question I've been asking some people. Okay. So that's fun that was a congruent answer as well.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And I mean, I'll be honest, one of the first songs I ever learned on bass, I think was Californication.
Nice.
And like my music teacher picked it. He was just like, yo, I got like, you'll dig this. You'll dig this. You'll have a lot of fun with it because like I told him some of the other stuff I was interested in. And he was like, check this out. And yeah, it lands. I mean, they have existed in such an interesting space and time for music. Like they'll be there and then they won't be and suddenly they will be. And they never seem to like need the same ebb and flow as everybody else.
They somehow manage to stay relevant no matter the lineup and the style they go for, but it's always them.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
And it's always undeniably them. You know what I mean? You hear them and you're like, okay, like I might not love this approach or I might not love this thing, but at least it's them.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love them regardless of whatever direction they go. They could start playing mariachi music and I'd dig it as long as Flea's playing because
true.
My favorite guy. He's my guy.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right. Now, before we move into this middle portion, the last kind of foundation question we have, it's a little bit denser.
Ooh.
Do you have a defining moment where you were like, because you've been doing music for a pretty like broad point of your life already, but do you have like a deciding moment where you're like, I want music to be the thing I do?
Oh man, I'd say from the moment I figured out what a bass was, like for some reason I was always drawn to the sound of it, and I was gifted a electric guitar, and I loved making noise on it, and it wasn't too long before I was thinking, man, I want to find out where I can get a bass, and I think I've just always been a bass player at heart for some reason, you know, and I was lucky to have gotten my first one fairly quick. And there's no looking back. There's no. It was the thing. I was always just infatuated with the sound and the look of it and just how mean it was and how, aggressive it looked, how thick the strings were. It was, and I had never played one and I never held one. And when I finally did, it was exactly how I envisioned it. And
when you hit that open low E for the first time and you feel it.
Yeah.
You feel it because they're like, here's a big amp for you to try it on, bud. Here, plug it into this. And you're like, okay, yeah. Yeah, and you literally feel the ground shake. That's that. I mean, there are not a lot of things like that in a young life.
No.
It's almost like commanding.
It's like going fast in a car, you know, a similar type of adrenaline.
And it for a little while, once you get used to it, it almost makes you feel like you have a superpower when you're listening to music because suddenly you hear the bass. In a lot of modern music, the bass is mixed to be, felt and not heard kind of thing.
Frequencies,
so then once you know how to dissect it, especially during like that era of music, I think like now, with electronic sound design, like bass is more present as an object, but back in the day it was really, seen, not heard kind of thing, but in reverse.
Yes.
And so like once you can hear that in music that you're like, I've always listened to these songs and I just never realized this. And then you're like, yeah.
I feel like I was picking it out relatively early,
For especially people who have
Chili Peppers,
I think, that's
mastered it.
A little bit different.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it gives you a new appreciation when you can hear it because you play it. Hell yeah.
That's right.
But now let's go ahead and dive on into you as the current day bassist.
Oh man.
And we're going to get a super easy one out of the way.
Okay.
How did you pick your musical name?
Oh, it actually came out of a book. And it's more of a picture book than anything because I don't do a whole lot of reading. But a few years ago, Geddy Lee from Rush put out a book called Geddy Lee's Big Beautiful Book of Bass Guitar. and it's just basically his collection, all documented and whatnot. And he had some interviews in there, and he had an interview with one of my other favorite bass players, Les Claypool. And there was a portion of the interview where they were talking about all the different bands that Les has played for, that he started and fronted and whatnot. And he said something along the lines of, "I'm a bit of a musical whore." And Geddy said something like, "I prefer the term musically curious," or something like that. And I was like, musical whore, that's a funny name. I'm going to kind of use that and maybe just change it to bass whore, because that's kind of what I am in the community as a bass player. The bass is kind of like my pimp in a way. It takes me places and it gets me money. So I'm a bass whore. Yeah, whore for the bass guitar, I guess.
That's for sure one way to look at it.
It's kind of, I feel like it was appropriate and it was fitting for me. I'm kind of a profane person, so like having that as a name is kind of like, it's
you're gonna know what you're gonna get. Like nobody's gonna be like, "Oh, I bet this person's like gonna show up in a suit and tie." You know what I mean?
Well, who knows? I mean, I like to surprise people.
True. You wouldn't show up to an event that required a suit and a tie, would you?
It depends. No,
I'm kidding.
No, I don't know. Maybe I might show up in a jumpsuit of some sort. I don't know.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Whatever I have, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not too particular with style and outfits and whatnot. Although I do want to try to get into that more. Just but what I have is what I have, I guess.
No, I was just having fun. Fun.
It's funny.
But let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process.
Okay.
And we're gonna kind of break it up into chunks, but we're gonna start right at the beginning.
All right.
So when you get inspired, you're ready to like make some music. And I mean, you can be solo stuff. You could be working with people. Maybe we'll focus on just kind of you as the solo artist for this part of it.
Okay.
But what do you do to get tracks started?
Usually it's, I have inspiration after I either go see live music or I watch a video of some of my favorite artists. And I always think, man, I'd like to write a song like that, and maybe not like that in the stylistic choice, but just the way that the song made me feel. Like I have a lot of these ideas that I keep on my phone or in my head, and it's not necessarily just lyrics or just riffs. It's emotions, and so however I'm feeling, I guess that day is kind of, it reflects on how I write. So if I'm feeling particularly agitated, I have bank of songs in my head that I try to put out, basically.
Okay.
And make into riffs or lyrics. And I hardly ever write music and lyrics at the same time. It's always one or the other, and then I add on to it later. And so I'm not one of those people that can pick up a guitar and start strumming out chords, or a bass or whatever the instrument, and start coming up with lyrics with it as I'm figuring out the riff. Like, one thing has to be done for me to finish it,
No, it makes sense. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with laying one foundation and then the other.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. It's probably a very, very common.
I was going to say, I definitely can't sing and play simultaneously if it's not on drums.
That's tough. Bass especially.
Yeah, because it's so much more like articulated in these particular instances that often don't go against the vocals themselves, but they really fill a lot of the in-between spaces.
You can make it simple enough to do it, but one's gonna lack in.
Yeah, then it's not fun.
Yeah,
then it's not, or at least not as fun.
It just depends if it calls for it.
Yeah. And then once you get a track finished, at least finished writing, it doesn't have to be like printed and pressed, but at least whole track is finished writing. How long does it usually take you to feel comfortable performing it?
Well, a lot of times I've performed some of these songs that I've ended up recording before they even come out, or before I even start working on them. So those ones are immediate. There is a handful of songs that I've worked on that are in the process of being recorded that I haven't ever played live. And so it's kind of hard to tell. I'm relatively fresh to the whole putting out my own music and performing my own live music, because I've always just done stuff for other people, and I've always been just a call for most people to come play bass for them and their songs. I fit where I'm needed. So this is new for me.
Yeah. Well, then
It's hard to tell.
we'll go on that more, but I guess as kind of a caveat version of this question, how long does it usually take you to learn other bands' music?
I can learn in a 3 to 4 hour set in a week.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Sometimes I can crunch it even more, and if it's a gig where I can have notes on stage, which most of them are, like I don't think I've ever encountered an artist where like you can't have notes.
Yeah.
I don't ever use an iPad, or I don't, I have just like on my set list just notes of starting things and ending, starts and ends of songs and whatnot.
Yeah, just giving you little key points that you may need to do the performance.
So if I'm able to do that, I could learn a 2-hour set the day before I play.
Oh yeah.
And I've had to do that quite a few times. And so a lot of it's been me procrastinating. And then there's been some instances where I just get the call last minute to do it, and I have to, I have no choice.
Yeah, if you're going to take the gig, you got to do it.
Like the band that I've played with most recently with, the Boondock Boys, that's how I got the gig. Was they had a New Year's Eve show planned, and I got called to sub for their bass player, like 2, maybe 3 days before, and we had one rehearsal, or we had maybe 1 or 2 rehearsals.
Yeah.
And I played the show and it went really well. I wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect on my end.
I mean, it's New Year's Eve. You don't, if you're going to have a show where you don't have to play perfect 100%.
Well, I feel like I'm pretty good at disguising mistakes and making them sound intentional. And I listen a lot. Like a lot of musicians do not, like they think they have ears, but they don't. They really don't. They only listen to what they're playing, and they're only focused on how they sound and whether or not they're playing something right. And if they think it's right, even if it's wrong, they'll still play it that way.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person who can hear what I'm playing, but I'm mostly listening to other instruments in the group to ensure that what I'm playing works.
Oh yeah.
And it's not too out.
You've been playing with people since the beginning. And for so long now that like it makes sense that you are more attuned to like the actions of the instruments around you, because you have to be a little more elastic because you're doing it so often with so many different people. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
But now let's focus on your solo music again. And I want to ask, what was the decision, or what caused the decision to want to put out solo music?
I think it had to do a lot with my desire to be in bands. Like what would you say? It would be like your ideal band that you might look up to, just out of high school and in college. I was dead set on being in a band with some friends where it was all 4 or 5, however many people in the band, democratic ideas that work together in this perfect blend, and it ended up just being led by one person, and there was times where I would try to implement my stuff into it, and we got really close to doing certain things like recording the songs. We played some live, and it just never happened. And I don't think it was a lack of interest. I think it was just a timing thing, and a lot of those bands kind of fell through. Not for no reason, or for a certain reason. I don't even know. Yeah. But I think the first batch of tunes that I ever put out were mostly just to get some songs out that I've had for so long. Yeah. That I just needed to get down. I just needed to get them out of the way so I can move on to get those sounds out of my head, basically.
Yeah, if you ever want to show them, if you ever want to show those songs to people, instead of playing it for them now, you can just be like, here, check it out. Yeah. Yeah, you kind of prerequisite it by using that as this is what I did, and now look what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. I dig that. I don't even know how deep they are on the internet, but I've definitely got some like bass only songs that I put out there somewhere. And it was the same reason. I was like, these are the things I always play. Like, let's just move on from it.
Just got to catalog it, Yeah, it's got to be somewhere. Yeah. You can't keep floating in your head because you got to replace those ideas once in a while because your head will explode.
Yeah. Well, and it's just fun to do new stuff sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about your EP.
Okay.
So you just recently put it out.
Yeah, I put it out on the 4th of January. It's my birthday.
Well, that's exciting.
That was a fun time.
Oh, happy birthday, I guess.
Yeah, it was a good gift. We did a little birthday party / EP release thing at the Gemini in Lake Oswego. And,
nice.
And it was a good time. And I couldn't have gone any better, in my opinion. Had all these people that, not all of them, but a majority of the people that were involved in the recording process, they all showed up and played some of the songs that they were on. And it was just a big jam session, basically.
Yeah.
And which is leading to other cool opportunities at the Gemini, which is always great, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, being able to get out there and play is always a lot of fun, and that the EP is really cool. It's really dynamic. They all the songs feel different, but it feels like that was intentional. And
I'd say so, yeah,
yeah, and I mean, just they all had a personality to them, like Cold War Wurlitzer.
Yeah.
That was the track where I was like, this is the bass's track. Like, it was just running around the whole time. It was it was like the driving element, but that saxophone solo.
Oh yeah.
Which and then
that's JD Erickson on the tenor sax. He's probably the best tenor sax player I know. And
we'll have to get him on the show sometime.
Oh, he'd love it, you know. Hell honestly, yeah. He's quite possibly one of the best tenor sax players in the Northwest, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's exciting. Hell yeah.
He stays really busy. Yeah.
I mean, dude is ripping.
Yeah.
Phenomenal solo. Like anytime I hear a sax solo, I always give it extra attention because I'm like, And when one just shreds, it's like,
I mean, he looks up to his heroes, which are the heroes of most tenor sax players, and he takes direct inspiration from them, and that's the right people to be listening to. You know?
Yeah. And it definitely shows.
Yeah.
But I mean, that track in general, like I said, was it had a really cool move to it. And then What the Dog Doing? that one was just fun. Like the whole track.
It's a goofy little tune, you know. That one is quite different from the other ones because it was just a jam.
Mm-hmm.
So I track all these songs with a guy named Timothy James, whose shirt I'm wearing.
Yeah.
And he has a drummer named Alec who plays all over. He's crazy busy. And I planned on having him on the EP playing drums. And one day Tim was like, we should just set up a bunch of mics and just jam on some stuff. And so we ended up having this hour to hour and a half long open jam. And they had a bunch of, it wasn't like one consistent song. It was like a bunch of different ideas and with some breaks in between. And that was one of them. What the Dog Doing ended up, that was the final product of a jam that was about 10 minutes long, condensed into a 3 or 4 minute song.
Oh yeah.
So it's funny because if you listen to it, you can actually hear some of because we weren't playing to a click or anything. You can actually hear some of the tempo changes when we splice sections together.
Yeah.
And I think the drums, bass, and some of the guitars were all from that original session, that jam sesh. And then we just overdubbed vocals and more guitars and all kinds of other crazy background chattering and whatnot. And so
it definitely, the track had a personality to it for sure. It really it felt like there was an intentional space in it.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun for sure.
When we did that jam, Timothy was riffing on vocals. And so he was the one that kind of inspired the idea of the story. He was just coming up and he basically was telling me how I was just singing about things that I thought you might sing about. So I'm like, all right, cool. That works, you know.
Nailed it.
And so I kind of just refined it in a way, just took what he said and changed it a little bit here and tweaked it. So he gets a lot of credit for that one too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
With everything on that EP, actually, he gets a lot of credit for. So
I mean, it's a solid EP in general, and I like how the ending track is it Yakisoba?
Yeah.
That I thought it was cool that you chose to end the EP more traditional. That felt just like a dialed in good track.
That was the first tune we started on. That it took the longest to finally finish, but originally it was just going to be an all bass solo bass track. And we were sitting there like, man, it kind of needs drums, man, it kind of needs guitar, well, why not add a saxophone, you know? And then it turned into that, you know. And so I'm it was an interesting process with that one.
Well, like I said, because all the other tracks have an element to them. They have a personality, a design, something that like makes them stand out. But that was the one where the whole time I was listening to it, I was like, yep. Like it felt dialed. Like that one felt like the controlled song. Not that the other ones felt out of control, but the other ones felt like they were supposed to be.
I think that's due to the fact that it was worked on probably the longest.
Yeah.
And I think it turned out pretty all right.
No, it's like I said, it was a strong ending. Like you could have put it anywhere and it would have worked, but that being the closing track really just clinched it in the end. I
also felt like I wanted to try to appeal to some of the more, I wouldn't say it's like a jazz tune, but it's just, it's got a jazz form. It's got a head with solo sections back to the head, Yeah,
it's got like a technical element to it for sure.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
It's got A part, B part, solo over it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's different than just like your verse, chorus, bridge, outro or whatever, Exactly. Slightly different form, but
hell yeah.
It was fun. Yeah.
No, I mean the EP in general. Everybody, if you haven't listened to it yet, go listen to it.
Please, yes.
Yeah.
I have music videos too. I have a music video and then one that comes out Friday.
Oh.
Friday at midnight for Cold War Wurlitzer.
So it would have come out by the time this comes out. But
yeah. Oh, yeah. Dates.
Yeah.
Friday.
We're in the past right now, y'all.
Yeah. It's out.
Yes.
It's out right now.
Now, out of all the songs you have, which one's your favorite one to perform?
I really like playing What the Dog Doing. That's just it's a crowd interaction song. It's one of those ones where you can get everyone doing the hook, the yeah, just clap your hands,
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really gotten a chance to try that kind of stuff out in a live situation, and I've been really surprised with the few times that I have played it live.
Yeah.
How much response I get from people.
People love audience participation. The audience loves audience participation. Yeah,
it's easy.
Well, if it's good, it is easy.
Yeah,
like anybody should be able to figure it out by halfway through the instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Like
some of these guys out there, it's like, wow, that's pretty insane. I get if you're getting audience participation from an audience solely that made up of musicians.
Yeah. Or at the very least, if you have a baked-in audience that knows it and they nosed it, then goes for it.
They're like, I'm so ready for that audience participation part of the show.
Yeah, exactly. And then looking at, we'll look at your EP for sure, but your current sound, whatever you're doing the most at the moment.
Yeah.
What are some of the things about the attributes of your sound, the approaches, your style at the moment that you enjoy?
Oh, a lot of it is the places we're doing these songs and that they're coming together. I've been fortunate so that first EP was all done at Timothy James' home studio, Dino Den is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And for this second batch of tunes that I have that are just in the chamber, they're almost ready. They just need to be mixed and mastered.
Mm-hmm.
We've been kind of bouncing around all these different places, and so the gear that we've been fortunate to use on the consoles and in the rooms,
mm-hmm.
and that's what I love about it. It feels so right,
Hell yeah.
And I think that if it weren't for those, I'd say the songs would be equally as intended the way that I've written them, and it'd be all great. But because we have that extra element of getting to use this quality stuff,
mm-hmm.
I think that's a big thing. That's a big part of the way it sounds. The reason it sounds the way it does is because of not only Timothy but the facilities and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
All right, and then to wrap up this middle portion,
okay,
this is probably the densest question on the interview.
Ooh.
But we've talked a lot about, with your experiences and the things that you had growing up and how you got into music and what you do with it. But when it's just you and the music one-on-one, what does the music give back to you?
Like my personal music is what you're asking about.
Yeah, just playing in general, like the experience of making music.
There's no better feeling than making people dance, whether, in a live situation.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen as often when you're listening. If the people don't dance to the song that, you put out on Spotify all that often. But when you're in a live situation, if you can make people dance, that's like super fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just the reaction of other people and seeing people smile and talking about it with them afterwards I think that's the coolest part about it. And it's just, it's healing, it's when you're standing in front of a bass amp, I say this a lot, but it's like you can feel the heat coming off of it. It's
mm-hmm.
almost therapeutic, and everyone agrees that music is therapeutic in some way or another. But yeah, it's definitely a medicine.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that. Everyone that appreciates music understands that music is medicine.
Hell yeah.
And if it weren't for it, we'd be in some dark times.
Yeah.
Because it heals. It does. Other people's and your own.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that through this conversation, both from you and for me even, there's been an acknowledgement of tactility in the enjoyment of bass and like the physical attributes being a part. And that I think that's a really cool element of just music in general, how like even when there isn't a physical element per se, like in part of the interaction, there are always physical elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those are more sensational than others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I guess I'm kind of learning a little bit about what I appreciate about bass through this conversation as well. So thanks for letting me reminisce through that one. But now let's go ahead and move on to some hypothetical questions.
Okay.
And for these, the sky's the limit. The questions are all made up and the answers are allowed to be as well.
All right.
This first one's pretty straightforward though. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with and how would you want to work with them?
I've always thought it'd be cool to work with Rick Rubin, of course.
Okay.
Just because he's produced some of my favorite artists,
mm-hmm.
and he just seems like a good hang, and he seems intellectual. I mean, he is.
Yeah.
Of course, but at the same time, I feel like that I would be super intimidated in a way. But so it's like kind of there's that battle, of I'd love to, but I'm terrified.
Well, remember this is hypothetical, so that wouldn't exist.
Okay, yeah. So I'd say Rick Rubin, some other awesome producers out there, but I'd say Rick for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. As far as musicians go, because Rick Rubin isn't even a musician. That's what blows my mind. He doesn't know anything about like playing something, but I'm sure he knows now just by observing. But it's hard because as a bass player, I'd love to work with all these other bass players, but that's, you can have two bass players. I mean,
you can. I've seen three at one time.
Yeah, that's
but that was like
kill.
Victor Wooten, Stuart Ham, and oh my God, was it? Who was the third bassist?
Stu Ham, Victor Wooten, and was it at like a clinic?
Yeah. Like there was like, how like guitars have G3?
Yeah. It wasn't Justin Chancellor, was it?
No, it was like,
because I've seen something recently with them.
Okay, we won't dwell on this for too long. Keep going.
Guitar players. I have a handful of guitar players I'd love to work with. Mm-hmm. Alex Lifeson from Rush would be really cool. Frusciante, even though he's a bit out there, drummers. You say they have to be alive? Oh man.
Yeah, I know, right?
There's a lot of people that are just from Portland that I'd love to be able to work with too,
Yeah.
People
actually, that's the next question.
Okay. Yeah, I'll save that.
Subsequently, we'll go ahead and dive into that one. Who are some local artists that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
Haven't gotten to connect with. I've connected with a lot of people, fortunately. Let's see. Paul Gilbert, I'm pretty sure he lives in Portland still, maybe, or he originally was from Portland, maybe. I don't know. He's around here a lot. I think that'd be really cool to work with him because he's like he's all encompassing with the types of music I enjoy. People that are more accessible because he's pretty hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, I was going to say like him, Portugal the Man, probably not
right.
So doable.
They're from Portland, but
yeah.
Man, can think of quite a few horn players. I think it'd be cool to work with Renato. He's a tenor sax player out of Portland. Man, and he plays really well. Maybe come back to that one. I'll kind of simmer on that one.
Oh yeah,
but yeah.
Well, who are the people you were going to shout out that you have worked with in the area?
Oh, there's so many. I could sit here and for an hour and tell you about.
Well, then we'll save that for the actual shout outs at the end.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
For this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits, and it's pretty literal in the sense. But if you could perform anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power, guaranteed best lineup, guaranteed best show, and it doesn't have to be a venue, and it can't be the Sphere in Las Vegas, where would you pick?
I wouldn't want to play there anyway. I mean, that's cool. I would love to play. I've always wanted to play Slane Castle in Ireland. I mean, it's just up the road, but the Gorge would be awesome.
Oh yeah,
to play the Gorge. Now, as far as places that don't necessarily have venue already built in, somewhere here around here would be really neat. You know, somewhere not too far, somewhere in the backyard.
Yeah.
Maybe up at Mount Hood or something. That'd be really neat. Just up on a mountain, lots of trees. You know. Maybe some wildlife.
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool. I'm not too picky when it comes.
No.
I think every place has its own little vibe, but you know.
Outdoor spaces are always a lot of fun for performances.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh yeah.
Sounds a little different.
I'll probably think of something else here that'll pop into my mind. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, shout it out if you think of it.
Okay. Yeah.
But to wrap up the hypothetical question.
Okay.
If you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you want an album from?
Rush. That's super easy.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Can't get enough of their music.
Valid. Yeah, that would.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be down for that. Favorite Rush album?
Favorite Rush album? Probably Hemispheres.
Okay.
Yeah, like some of their, I think that's what, 79? Some of their earlier stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I do like. It's hard to name them all. It's like naming your favorite kid, you know, of course. But Hemispheres is one of them.
I guess, one that stands out, and that's definitely a solid choice.
Yeah.
I have the weirdest introduction to Rush because everybody did like 2112 and things like that, all the big ones. The first Rush album I ever heard was Roll the Bones.
Roll the Bones, nice.
Yeah, and it was like a CD in my house, and I liked it. Like, I listened to it a bunch.
It's a great rock album.
Yeah.
So solid.
Yeah, and then I found out about all the other ones. I was like, oh, this was just one that they were like contractually obligated to write.
Yeah, they're just, we need music.
Yeah, like they just had to do it because of like requirements for things. And I was like, this is like, it was the first like music that I had heard where it was like, it felt really polished. It felt like these were dudes that were almost, talented outside the space they were performing in, but they were so tight that they just did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That whole era was kind of interesting for them.
Yeah.
The Test for Echo and Hold Your Fire, early 2000s and mid 90s type stuff. That's an interesting time for anybody that's been around since the early 70s.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah. All right, but now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start wrapping this up.
Okay.
What can we look forward to, let's say, between now and August?
I should have the second batch of tunes out sometime late spring, maybe early summer.
Nice.
I plan to do some. I want to do some more shows as my own artist name, and not just play with other bands and whatnot. I've got all kinds of ideas floating around, but. Yeah, for the most part, more original music and maybe even a full length by, at least be working on a full length by this summer. Maybe not be done by August, but might be close.
Definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And then for this next one, go ahead and look straight at the camera and tell everybody how they can find you.
Oh, you can find me mostly on Instagram. I have a link tree. What do you call that? A link to a link tree on my Instagram, which will take you to my YouTube channel as well as other YouTube channels that I've been featured on in some way or another. I'm on Spotify under Bass Horror, and I have that one EP on there. And yeah, that link tree will take you to a lot of cool places. It'll show you all the bands that I've been involved with in the past and that I'm currently still involved with. So, but that's mostly from Instagram. I don't go on Facebook too much. I like Instagram. That's the shit.
Oh, yeah. And like, I'll put your ad on the screen and that'll be down in the
nice.
Links are down below, everybody. You know how it works.
Links are down below.
Yep. Wait a second. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you want to put on while you're on here?
I really want to shout out Timothy James because he's helped me so much. And shout out to Michael Illa for allowing me to, by being on this show, that allowed me to discover you and be on this show as well. So, but then also shout out to all the musicians involved on the making of my EP, as well as on future things that aren't even out yet. So shout out to all of them.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, now we've got one last question to go.
All right.
Before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Okay.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary. Make sure to click the link below and go check them out. I guarantee you're going to like it. But with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation.
Okay.
But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's not one a lot of people know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
I have like maybe 2 or 3 that I'd like to say. Is that can I?
Yeah, go for
it. Say a couple. Okay, so one of them, "Close to the Edge" by Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Great choice. Great choice.
Everyone should have to hear that at least once. Whether or not they choose to hear it again, they should have to hear it at least once. It's a average length album, 45 minutes, but it's only consisting of 3 songs.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll kind of that explains it. There's 3 long songs. I am really into the latest Chili Peppers album. That came out within the last couple of years. They put 2 double-length albums out, and diehard Chili Pepper fans will know them. But the people that don't listen to them all the time, but they know their songs, should hear them because they're going to be classics for sure. And I think they just keep getting better. So I think that's "Return of the Dream Canteen" is one of them, and then "Unlimited Love" by the Chili Peppers, and then "Hemispheres" from Rush, of course, my favorite Rush album.
Hell yeah.
Can't beat it.
No, those are all solid choices.
Yeah, thank you.
I only ever get to do it when I get to think of one. I've got one. I'm gonna throw one on here as well.
Okay.
Everybody should check out "Brother" by Young and Sick.
Ooh.
Incredible album.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, you're not gonna be prepared for what it is, and then you're gonna listen to it and you're gonna be like, yeah. That's all I'm gonna say about it. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was cool. This is the first time I've ever been in an interview style podcast where I've gotten to speak. I've been on other shows with other groups and I just stand there.
Yeah. Well, glad to have you here. And actually, before we go, you want to play a little bass?
I'd love to. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up real quick. This has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Ryan, bass horror.
And we'll see you in just a moment.